Hey everybody, shalom, welcome. Now we can finally start. Welcome to iVision Live. My name is Ro'i Amin and I will be the moderator of today's session. For those of you who don't know, iVision Live is a program that was created in the World Zionist Organization, Department of Diaspora Affairs, that I'm proud to be its head of delegation here to North America. Our department is being led from Jerusalem by a member of the WZO executive, Mrs. Guti Yoshua Braverman, and works every day, even during the corona, in more than 30 countries around the world to connect Jews to Israel and to Israeli society in order to maintain the role of Israel as the part of the modern Jewish identity around the world. Today we have we will dive into politics, and our iVision Live session will try to understand better the consequences of the agreement between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the upcoming alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz. As we all know, this unity government breaks a persistent political deadlock after more than a year of elections, but it also draws heavy criticism from blue and white voters and from right-wing politicians. For understanding better this criticism, we invited two political commenters from opposing sides of the political spectrum. The first one is Avi Dabush. Raised in a national religious home in the southern town of Ashkelon, Avi's journey of activism and leadership has been bold and far-reaching. Through various roles at Shatil, the operating arm of the New Israel Fund, Avi led many coalition and grassroots campaigns on a broad spectrum of issues: struggle against poverty, workers' rights, campaigns to protect nature, and responsible urban planning, and many more. He was one of the founders of the Movement for the Future of the Western Negev, which brings the voices of residents of the South calling for a political agreement between Israel and Gaza. And last year entered to politics and ran for the Knesset as a part of the Meretz party. Since June 2019, Avi Dabush is the executive director of Rabbis for Human Rights and recently started to publish his columns on Israel's most widely read paper, Israel Hayom. Avi is a proud father of two sons and lives in Kibbutz Bror Chayil near Sderot, and we are very glad to have him here with us today. Our second speaker, Shalom Avi. Our second speaker today is Naveh Dromi. Naveh was born and raised in Kiryat Yvon in a secular political home and was always different than the left-wing community that surrounded her. She defines herself today as a proud national liberal right-wing woman and feels obligated to share the voices of many people like herself, breaking the stigmas around the connection between religiosity and political affiliation. Naveh previously worked as the director of the NGO Blue and White Human Rights, an organization that works to promote awareness for Palestinian human rights while strengthening Israel as a just and worthy society. Today, she is the head of the Middle East Forum office in Israel and appears often on political forums and on televised panels, while also publishing political op-eds on Haaretz. Naveh lives in Ra'anana. She is the mother of two daughters and one very neurotic dog. Naveh and Avi, shalom, bruchim habayim. We are very glad to have you here with us.
Shalom, good to be here.
How
Hello,
are you guys?
thank you for having us.
Before we will dive into our question, I first would like to encourage all of our viewers to ask any question or make any comment in the chat section below or the Q&A section below. You can find it here right below. So feel free and we'll try to do our best to respond. And I also would like us all to remember for a quick moment what are the basic details of this agreement between Gantz and Netanyahu. So I would like to share with you this slide and to go over some of the main details of this agreement. So according, can you see the slide? Naveh and Avi?
Yeah.
Great. So according to the deal with Netanyahu and Gantz, we're talking about the government that its term is 36 months, although we know that the Knesset passed a law that allowing it to extend this term if it finds it necessary. You know that it will define it as a national emergency government for the first 6 months. There will be a rotation. Netanyahu will be the prime minister for the first 18 months and Netanyahu the second. We're talking about 36 ministers, and 16 deputy ministers. We know that the cabinet will be split equally between the Likud party and Blue and White. Netanyahu will have a veto on attorney general and government legal advisor appointment. We know that after July 1st, they will be considering to pass the annexation law of the West Bank, and they will establish a joint coronavirus cabinet led by both of the leaders. And I'm wondering, Naveh and Avi, before we'll start, it's the same question for you, both of you guys. What are your feelings about this agreement? How do you view it? And are you also concerned about the policy of the future government, each one from its own side of the political spectrum? Naveh, we will start with you.
Okay, I wanted to offer Avi, men's first. Look, my view on the agreement is that I don't like it. I think unified governments used to be, no matter what is the political situation, are most of the time paralyzed governments. You can't do too much because each side is pulling the rope to each side. I think in this particular situation, what happened is that the coronavirus played to the both actors, Netanyahu and Benny Gantz. I reminding everyone that Israel has been through 3 elections in the past year, and time has come, and I think the public was tired and the politicians were tired. So in this way, the unified government was actually saving both parties, Likud and Blue and White, even though I'm reminding also that according to the polls, if there are elections now, the Likud is going to gain something like 40 mandates, which is amazing. But back to your question, basically, I'm against unified government as a principle, but what I see from this government, which I like and I think is so important, is the annexation and the plan of Trump, the deal of the century, which I think is something that we can't lose. It's an opportunity we can't escape. And the risk of going to 4 elections and to have a right-wing government are not worthy if we have the annexation on our table. I mean, if it's going to 4 elections and maybe lose the opportunity to go to annexation or stay with this government and have an annexation, then I will go with this government, even though in many, many areas, the right-wing camp has lost in things that we care about. If it's the legal minister, or please correct me if I'm not using the right words for mishpatim.
You're right.
Okay. But there are many offices that I would like to have as a right-wing person, which I don't have in this government. So if I'm looking at this in a way of what do I gain and what do I lose, then I gain the annexation and the opportunity to have a sovereignty of areas that I think we should have sovereignty on. So I'm trying to look at this part of the agreement and this government. Thank you.
Thank you. Avi, what about you?
Yeah, for me it's important to talk. First, it's great to be here, and thank you for inviting me. For me, it's important to look on the present and the future. Of course, we can talk a lot, we like it or not. This is a fact. It seems like that on this Thursday, there will be a new government after nearly a year and a half that we are in maybe the most complicated political crisis in Israel. And I believe, for me, you just mentioned I live in Borhail. I don't live in Borhail anymore. For more than 2 years, I live in Sderot. And this is important because my angle is the periphery people, the people in the geographical and social and economic peripheries of Israel. And I believe that we must, or I must think about their power. Of course, we are people, or they are people with no power, with no political power. So I can see 3 main topics that are really important in this government. The first one is the economic one. Of course, we are in the midst of maybe the biggest, in a way, the biggest economic crisis in Israel. We just heard that 27% of the people are unemployment, and this is the high record, the peak record in Israel of all times. And of course, in this time, we will go. Right now, we haven't got any national budget from January, and now we will go to make this budget for 2020 and 2021. And there will be a big debate between, I can say, Netanyahu and Israel Katz. He's supposed to be the Minister of Finance, and against the Labor Ministers Shmuley and Peretz. They are held in the Economic and Welfare Ministries. So that will be very interesting for me, for us, and it's not a matter of interest, of course, it's the matter of our life. And you mentioned that I'm the director of Rabbis for Human Rights. Our main focus is people that live in poverty in Israel, Jews and Arabs, of course. And this is a very big question for us. What will be with those people that are in very deep crisis? The second one, Nave mentioned, the annexation, all the diplomatic arena. I just spoke with a friend that's supposed to be a minister from Blue and White, and he said we made so many terms.
The name?
No, we made, it was private, of course. We made so many, we had so many terms in order to make this annexation. So it's just like saying it won't be in any time. And maybe if we know Netanyahu, I would say I would bet that we won't go to annexation because he's a very cautious politicians, but of course right now is in a different situation because of the trials. What?
I agree with you that Netanyahu is cautious, but I hope you are wrong about this.
I know that. But right now is in a different place because it's his trials, of course, and Yamina, Bennett's and Ayelet Shaked's party are in the opposition, it seems like that, and they will may really persist and be a very strong opposition in order to promote this annexation. Of course, I think it's a very bad thing for us, for the peace agreement with Jordan and so on. We can talk about it later. And the last one is, like Nave mentioned, the legal arena. So Blue and White got this ministry, the legal ministry, and they got very skilled politicians in this ministry, Avi Nissan-Cohen. But as you mentioned, in the agreement, there are a lot of vetoes and power for Netanyahu and the right in order to not allowing him in a way to make some changes. Of course, for me, it's a pity. We just talked about it yesterday, that this legal debate or discourse, it's really important because I have a lot of criticism about the Supreme Court and all this legal arena and the way that it support or not support the poor people in Israel and support, in my view, the occupation. But right now there isn't any direct debate. Of course, there is Netanyahu and the right that are against the Supreme Court right now. There are a lot of ideological criticism, but right now it's mainly Netanyahu, it is interest. And in the left, it's people that don't want Netanyahu, and this is the way to let him go. So for me, it's a pity, and of course, it will be very interesting to see that. And the last comment: we are in Israel. We are in Lag BaOmer Eve. And it's really important, the 33 day of our counting from Passover to Shavuot. And actually we are celebrating a failure of Bar Kokhba against the Romans. And for me, it's a very big lesson. This beard, it's a part of it, of course, because we are mourning about the students of Rabbi Akiva, that he was promoting this rebellion against the Romans. And of course, there are a lot of good things about that. We want freedom, and this is very humanistic and even Jewish thing. But he did that, for my opinion, as a way that was very destructive. Like in a messianic way, he said that Bar Kokhba is the Messiah, and he pushed his students to be part of this rebellion, and 24,000 students died. So for me, it's a very important lesson that there is limitation to power. We are strong. We are, of course, we are in a crisis. We are all globally in crisis, but we are strong enough, even in the economy and of course, military speaking. But again, we must understand that we must use this power in order to make, for my opinion, agreement. I'm just, right now I'm in Kibbutz Nirim. It's 100 meters from Gaza border. And for us, it's really important that this government will take another route because we are counting 19 years since the first rocket to Sderot. So I hope that something good will come from this very, I don't know, kind of a bitter marriage. As Naveh said, of course, nobody really happy about this government.
But Avi, I want to add something to what you said, because you talked about the legal arena, and I feel like it's important to speak to whoever listens to us, to reflect to them what's going on in Israel, because I don't know if you agree with me or not, but in Israel and also outside of Israel, the conflict with the Palestinians used to be a major issue when it comes to the arguments between the right camp and the left camp. And what happened in Israel is that this subject is now in the merge, and I don't know if I said it correctly, and what caught the center of the argument in Israel, it's the legal arena. It's the office of legal issues, and the elections. In many ways, people talked only about this, not about the Palestinian conflict, not about a relationship between state and religious. This was the main issue, and this is still what's many times different between right and left in Israel. And I think
I believe this is not the issue. The issue is Netanyahu, yes or no?
I have to relate to that, Naveh. Sorry. I want to refer to that. It's hard. But Naveh, you mentioned, that the legal aspect, the power of the Supreme Court, it became a significant part in the public discussion in Israel. So I'm wondering, 18 ministries for 19 members of Knesset of Blue and White and the Labour Party. That will probably a power that will limit all the aspirations that right-wing voters had with regard to, revolutions with the power of the Supreme Court or other aspirations. How do you think this power of Blue and White will limit the reforms that right-wing voters or right-wing politicians have promised us? Like, do you think it will block them? Do you think it will limit them? What will be the biggest compromises with regard to that?
I think the biggest compromise we made is this office, the office of ministers, that we lost it. Look,
and how it will affect on the field.
It will affect. I will tell you something. It won't affect a thing because the situation is already bad. In my point of view, in 10 years, Netanyahu didn't touch the Supreme Court, didn't touch the Praklitut, I don't know how to say it, the legal advisor office. He just didn't touch it. In many ways, Netanyahu is very cautious to touch those institutes. He's very respectful for them, even though his criticizers from the left saying that he's divided and he showed them, he creates a bad image to them, a negative image. Netanyahu is one of the best keepers of these institutions. And what most of the criticism about Netanyahu from the right-wing people, even those who vote Likud, is on this issue. So the fact that we lost this issue again after a very good minister in this office, Amir Ohana, is one of the most heartbreaking things for the right camp. And this is why I agree with you that on this issue, the right-wing camp will have a lot of problems and nothing will change. Not about the asylum seeker issue, not about things that regards to, I don't know, the situation in South Tel Aviv, the way that the Supreme Court relates to Palestinian terrorists, it will remain the same thing, not a change. And this is my main criticism on this agreement, because right now when people look at the agreement, they think that Blue and White and Netanyahu had the same votes, so they are equal. But Netanyahu came with a huge camp of right-wing parties. It was the Likud, Yamina, Shas. This bloc was very strong, was very steady. And even though, from my opinion, Netanyahu is an excellent politician, could have asked more for the national camp, but he didn't. And this is how I also strengthen my argument that Netanyahu is very respectful of the institutions in Israel. And he doesn't, in this specific arena, he doesn't bring home what his crowd want him to bring home.
Thank you, Neve. Avi, I have a question. You are a leading voice of some of the most intense political struggles in Israel, and I want to put aside, the discussion about the Supreme Court, about security issues. Do you see here in this future government any opportunity for, I don't know, some social reforms, maybe some changes with regard to religion and state? Maybe we'll see a change with the status of marriages in Israel, the power of the Rabbanut. Maybe there is an opportunity here because Blue and White has such a great power. What do you think?
Actually, when I worked for Shatil and the NIF more than 10 years, in each elections, I remember that we had this discussion and we said this time, this is the biggest opportunity. We will see things changing. And of course, we can see in polls that most of the Israelis are in favor of public transportation in Saturday and are against the monopoly of the Rabbanut and so on. But again and again, it didn't happen. Even when it was, if we are talking about Netanyahu term, between 2013 to 2015, when he doesn't have any ultra-Orthodox parties in his coalition. So I believe that we won't see any change because this is the main thing, and Nave mentioned it at the beginning of her talk. This is the main thing of those unite coalitions. There is a lot of good things that we saw in the 80s about those governments because they could have made big movements towards it wasn't towards peace, but in Lebanon they moved the IDF, and in the economy I was against, or I am against their what they did at 85, but again they could did so in a consensus. So there are good things, but again in those very harsh situation that they need in the coalition, this coalition, Shas, of course, and Netanyahu specifically needs them, and they need Yadut HaTorah, the other ultra-Orthodox, the Ashkenazi ultra-Orthodox party. I can't see really something change. Maybe they will back up in the municipalities, the mayors, in order to make those public transportation on Saturday. And this is good, I think. I live in Sderot, most of us traditional or religious, so we don't need or we don't want, it's not a very popular and big need for Sderot citizens, but of course in other places, in Ashkelon and little parts of Sderot and other, of course, Tel Aviv and other places, there is a need like that. So I believe that maybe they will touch it. And again, when we are talking about legal issues, most of those issues are issues that the political arena doesn't solve. They doesn't have the courage to solve that, and then it goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, you can say it doesn't have to make any statement, but in a way he pushed to do that, like we saw last week that they pushed in a way to make this ruling about Netanyahu. Can he be a prime minister or can't he be prime minister? Which is a very big and good question, but not a legal question in a way.
Neve, would you like to respond?
I think about what we need to remember is that in many ways the connection between the parties to the Orthodox parties is something that it's very hard to break, no matter if it's a left-wing government or a right-wing government, because the ultra-Orthodox in almost every situation are a must-need party in order to establish a government. I think the only late government that the ultra-Orthodox weren't a part of is the government of Netanyahu, Yair Lapid, and then Naftali Bennett. But most of the left-wing governments and the right-wing governments, we have to say sincerely, always leaning on the ultra-Orthodox party, on the Orthodox parties. So it's something about the political structure of Israel that mainly keeps this structure of governments, that each government needs the Orthodox parties as well.
And also it refers to the fact that the big parties in Israel, right now it's the Likud and Kahol Lavan, it used to be the Labor and the Likud, in a way they have no big interest about those issues. For me, it's a pity. I think we need to have some kind of another agreement. I'm not in a secular place that feels like we need to do everything like a freedom thing and doesn't have any meaning to Shabbat, to Saturday, and so on. But we need to have another agreement because there are needs for people like public transportation, marriage, and so on. But it's a pity, but the big parties are not really interested. And of course, the ultra-Orthodox parties, this is their main flag. So again and again, we see that most of the Israelis want a change, but they can't have it with this political structure and not enough will and courage for the big parties.
But I do want to say that I think that in the last decade, and this is something I give the Netanyahu the credit for it, the security situation is kind of comfortable. And when it comes to people that got killed from Palestinian terrorism, the numbers are low, kind of low compared to other years. And what happened is that the Israeli public is going out to the streets more on events like economics, state and religious, LGBT rights. If you remember the protest on the 2011, that people went on the street, I think in many ways it was possible because people in Israel feel more comfortable in the most basic right, the confidence of security, and it gives them the ability to go out to the streets and to protest on all these issues I just mentioned. So yes, there is still a way to go. I agree with you. There are still things we need to do, but I think the Israeli society in the last years moved on to other issues and not focusing only on the security and the terror issues.
So I feel that myself and my children are behind because we are not feeling secure, of course, since the war.
Of course, you're not feeling secure because since Israel left Gush Katif and you became the first line, of course you won't feel secure.
Gush Katif
from 2001.
It won't end. I want to address some of the audience questions. So we have a question from Michael Laufer from New York. Shalom, Michael. We hear and read that Gantz allies feel that he abandoned them and the party. How will he be able to regain trust and support of his former party members when he assumed the power, when he will become a prime minister? How can he be successful? Is what he read, like, how can he be successful and to gain this power or trust after he broke, its very basic promise? What do you think?
Actually, in polls, we can see that most of his voters are in favor of that move. And this is really interesting, but I can say that in the media and of course in my arena, people from more left parties like Meretz, they are really against it. I think that it seems to be, and I'm really careful because the polls maybe show something else, it seems to be that there is a very strong narrative about Gantz that he was very weak in this move, and maybe it's not part of this move specifically. All this year we really felt that he's kind of pushed to the arena. He's a nice guy, and I'm not telling that in a cynical way. He's a nice guy, but he's not really tough and strong, of course, when he's against a leader or a politician like Netanyahu, which has so much experience. So I believe that most of the we see most of the voters, and we must see it and not just hear what we want to hear. Most of the voters are in favor of that. But again, I can say that the narrative is very bad for Gantz. I don't know if we can see him really becoming prime minister after a year and a half. And if not, I don't really see how he can come back in a way that making again this big promise that used to have in this year.
it's also important to mention that Gantz, he had two bad choices. It was either to go with Yair Lapid to a minority government that wouldn't last much and it would be the end of his political career, or to try and go with Netanyahu, have support, as you said, due to the polls we see, there is support for this move. And I think in this way, and I'm not Gantz supporter, Gantz made the right decision. And if you have the choice of getting stabbed from an ally like Yair Lapid, or being disappointed from an enemy like Netanyahu, then it's better to be disappointed from someone like Netanyahu than from an ally like Lapid.
We have another question from Dr. Larry Greenberg. The liberal Jewish community in the US watches passively as our government votes yes or no on Israel annexing territories in the Jordan Valley. It seems bad to the peace process with the Palestinians, whatever left from it. Do you think that the annexation is a done deal? And I would like to add another question. Do you think that maybe the coalition, the government, won't pass the annexation law if the US will agree on it? What do you think?
I refer to that, so maybe Nave, if you want to.
So I think that Israel tried the peace process in many ways during the years, and most of the times, if not all the times, the first step was Israel giving up. And I think what's special about this plan is that for the first time, Israel is not asked to give up. Actually, it gives Israel what I think deserves to Israel, and give the Palestinians the opportunity to take advantage of their life, because as I see, the Palestinians had many opportunities to say yes for a peace process and also for a country of their own. And now they also get this opportunity, but we change it. So if we change the equation, this time it might work, because if we do the same thing over and over again and it's not working, either we are stupid or that's it. But I think this plan gives us the chance to try something new, and in my opinion, it will be more successful. If you ask me if I think if the peace process will, will become something that a role model for other countries, I doubt it. But maybe in a way it will give us steps or advantage we haven't had before, because we didn't have before, excuse me, because we always gave up, it never worked. And usually, if you look at the history of the conflict, when Israel gives up, then the terrorist organizations on the Palestinian side get more appetite. And this is what actually destroying the process. And regarding regarding that discussion, of course, I'm in favor. I think it's something that it's us, it's area. I mean, I'm not saying let's say annex Ramallah, but I'm saying that wherever there are Jewish communities and there is already some sovereignty of Israel, then just put a full sovereignty and that's it. And I think the Palestinians on this area should have the full rights.
I believe that the question is a long-term question. My families came from Syria and Libya, and I want a place in the Middle East. And I can see that the big question for my children, of course in Sderot, but any other children around, and of course even in Gaza, it's the question about the security and about their life in long term, like many years to flourish in Israel. And I believe that this process is, and this, if you can call it a plan, because it seems like so political, like for making, to give a push for Netanyahu before the elections, and of course Trump now he's heading his elections. So but it's not
now you are adopting.
It's not just a moment. It's not a really. I believe there wasn't any deep thought about it. Even it's okay, of course, for the right to bring its plan, and a lot of years the, the left said you don't have any plan. Okay, you don't want the peace process, you don't want the Oslo Accord. Of course, Netanyahu didn't made anything with the Oslo Accord, he's still using it for his favor, but so what's your plan? And I can say in the favor of the right now, he has a plan, or in the last years, Yamina and the settlers and other people in the right have a plan. The plan is annexation, and I believe it's very dangerous, and we can see it when we are talking about the agreement with the Jordanians, which is very important for us, for our security, long-term security. And of course, in the way that plan you talked about, maybe it will bring some kind of talking between Israel and the Palestinians. They weren't there. There was some kind of very bizarre scene of talking about peace with only one party in the room. So we of course understand, and we are not only Israelis. You talked about Israel history. We have human history, and we know that this is not the way for peace. This is not the way to agreement. And I want an agreement. I want to live here for many years, and my grandchildren, inshallah, and so on. Be'ezrat Hashem, we live here, and Israel flourish.
So I want to say absolutely it's a human history, and the human history shows that even before the establishment of Israel, there was a terror against Jews in this country, on this land. So again, it's strengthening my argument.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there isn't any conflict, of course.
But what I wanted to say is that, first of all, I want to thank you for being fair with the right. I mean, most of the left-wing people tell us the same story over and over and again, but you're saying the right camp for years didn't have
my family and my community.
But I wanted to say that there was a sentence you said about it's a political move toward Netanyahu, and when you said it, you actually adopting the discourse of yes Bibi, no Bibi, because I think the annexation is bigger than Bibi. Bibi is, again, is an excellent prime minister, is a very smart woman, but the annexation is something bigger than him. And I think one of the opportunities we have here, and I'm taking it back to what I said at first about the Palestinian conflict becoming non-issue for many Israelis, but also around the world, because if you look at the last years, the relationship with Arab countries are flourishing. It never happened before, and those countries don't care about the Palestinians.
Few of them.
Remember this, and they don't care about the Palestinians even when they are on the low ever. So I think that in this way, it's not just playing for Netanyahu; it's playing for Israel, because Israel is now in a great situation when it comes to foreign affairs, and we have a unified government, which in the unified government, we have a favor for annexation. So all the parts are coming together, allowing this to happen. And you know what? If it will be wrong, and the thing what's good about the right camp is that we're not saying that after annexation, the peace will flourish. We are recognizing that the conflict will always be here, but having annexation will give Israel an advantage for the security of its people, but also the rights for the Palestinians.
Navi, I have an interesting question, and it takes us maybe to the image of Israel or image of Israeli society after this year of elections. So we have a question from Philip. What does it say about Israeli society that the two leaders that that it shows are individuals that one was indicated in fraud, bribery, and breach of trust, and the other one has lied to its voters on some basic promises? Do you think, it's amazing because that's how it's been seen in this side of the world. Do you think it indicates something about our society?
It's a very interesting question, and I see, when I see Gantz and Netanyahu from the periphery, in a way, I see people that are really similar in a lot of ways. They are, of course, men, they are Ashkenazi oriented, They are not wealthy, if I'm talking about guns, but really well established and, you know, in a way rich or really not hungry, let's say. So this is a very good question. I believe that it's said that we are not promoting, in a way, people that can do. In a way, we are very conservative, or those years in Israel are very conservative. We can understand that. People, like Navesh said, I agree. People want security, and they feel, again, that we don't want, as we said, Mashiach achshav or Shalom achshav. We have to take those baby steps in order to make the thing better, but we are too conservative, I believe. And this is for my camp. I can say a lot about Netanyahu, and I believe that he has a lot of good things, but right now there are much more bad than good. But I can say about my camp, again and again, taking this general, and again, he's a good guy, but this general, we don't know anything about him. He wasn't experienced in the political arena and so on. So it's not really a very surprising thing that we discover that he's not the man that we wish him to be. Because when you don't know this person, again, even in a relationship, you know, first you have this falling in love and everything is perfect and so on, but it's not perfect and it's okay. There isn't anyone that is perfect, and the left in a way must go out from this fantasy of those perfect people that are in a way connect to 100 years ago of Zionism and so on, and find the new roots of the left. I believe that it must be connected to the peripheries. I believe that it must be connected to economic issues, and it must be connected to diplomatic issues in a way that I talked about, like in a very traditional and patriotic way, in a way that we are part of the Middle East, we are part, even a lot of us, from the Arab culture and so on. And right now, we are not going this way.
Navesh?
I just want to add something. I'm not sure it's related to the question, but I think it's interesting. I don't know, Avi, what you think, but the right camp, we have leaders among the ears. All of them are Ashkenazic, but their voters are from the periphery. Mm-hmm. And I think what hurts the left in the recent years is that the left talked about the periphery who vote for the right in a very negative way. They call them ignorant and stupid, and that they are voting for the wrong reasons, and that they are a herd. And I think this is in many ways put aside. I mean, I'm not talking about the ideology. I think ideology is also, not also, it's the main reason. But also in Israel, what happened is that the left, for many years and until today, talks about the periphery, about the traditionals, in a very negative way, and just help them stay in the right camp.
I agree. After 2015 elections, I was in Meretz at the 8th place, and after that there was a very negative talk about those peripheries that voting to the people that hurt them. Like, you know, this, like a woman that was beaten again and again, and again and again she's coming back to her lover or something like that. Very terrible and negative things. And then we started this talk in the peripheries, and I was established at the periphery movements in order to make this tikkun, this correction. And I believe that this is the main thing. You know, Menachem Begin, he had with Herut 8 mandates, 8 seats in the Knesset at 51. And I hear all the time from my parents, from the people in Sderot and others, that he was coming to their neighborhoods again and again. He saw very clearly those people that the left neglected and used to think, like you said, like less than them. And then just a moment, and then he gained force. And the left didn't know and doesn't know, and maybe we will be better in that to do this process. For me, Menachem Begin is a model about it.
I don't think he'll be better in that, because I think it's something in the DNA of the left. But I wanted to say that in many ways, what Netanyahu did in the last elections, it's what Begin did. Netanyahu made a decision on the last elections that he goes to every city and every village, spoke to his voters, and just, I mean, he still remains on the Facebook and Twitter, which this is the places where he's very strong, but he also made a decision to go out to the field. And about Gantz and Netanyahu, you have to understand the discourse in Israel, the argument in Israel about Netanyahu and the accusations about him is that many feel, and they have good reasons to feel like that the only way for the left to get Netanyahu away from the prime minister job is to take him to the court. Many, I mean, from the right national camp believes that for years, the left camp is trying to beat Bibi, but every time, no matter what they do, when it comes to the votes, the right camp wins. So they feel that not only the left trying to take Bibi away through these cases, but they also feel they are not trying to hurt Bibi. They are trying to attack the right, the entire camp. Because if Bibi goes down, then the right camp goes down. I mean, we can speak about if those beliefs are true or not and what we think about it, but I'm trying to reflect the feelings of a big, Israel.
Just 2 comments about that. The fact is that in the last year, Bibi and the right didn't won, so it's not like you said. And the second thing, I don't believe, like you said, it's the part of the DNA of the left. Maybe part of the DNA of some of the left leaders right now. But if I'm talking about the ideology of the left, of course, as a socialist and a person of peace and in the deep way, not in the shallow way, for me it's the thing that I grew up on. And I believe that this connection will come, and there will be in a lot of ways. The Likud right now is the new Mapai, and is alienated us in a lot of ways. And of course, there isn't a good alternative. I agree in that, but there will be a good alternative, and that's okay. You know, after many years of Likud rules and the right-wing rules, there will be a change, and this is good for Israel. As I always, in an argument with my colleagues about 77, that was good for Israel. And they're saying, wow, it was a disaster. That was good for Israel. And the other time, I don't know when it will come, that the Likud will put off, and the Netanyahu and so and others will go, and the left will get the rule again. I believe that will be good for Israel, and I want it to be good in a way that we have to change the left, and this is maybe a thing that we are agree on.
But if you think so,
sorry.
Yeah.
You told us before that we can debate.
I know. I want you to be
open. We can do it for hours.
Well, first I would like to apologize for all the people that send in many questions. We can't respond to all of them. We have one last question that I want both of you guys to refer. And, you know, the biggest question mark about this agreement is, what are the chances that in 18 months Netanyahu will hand power over to Gantz, and we will see another prime minister after it will be, I think, 13 years that Netanyahu is the prime minister of Israel? Do you think that he will hand over the power to Gantz, or no? What do you think?
I believe that it will be a miracle, like a very low percent chance that will happen.
Nave?
I think Netanyahu will respect the deal. I think Netanyahu will respect the deal because
we have to bet on it.
And it's recorded.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Because I think Netanyahu understands, and I think this is also why it goes very hard on the annexation and on the Iran agreement. He understands that he can't be the prime minister forever, and he would prefer to go that way. On contrary, go to another elections and maybe lose. And I think I think he will remembered as one of the best prime ministers in Israel, and that will be his chance to live in a terms that is good for him, and maybe also be the next president. So, by the way, I also think Netanyahu wants the unified government, because I think it's easier for him. Netanyahu can't stand the right-wing people that talk with him about Khan al-Ahmar and the asylum seekers. So I'm intending to think that he will, if a coronavirus is not happening, then I think he will respect the agreement.
Thank you very much. Naveen, Avi, thank you so much. First, I would like to tell everybody that we will post this video on Facebook, on the Facebook page of the Department for Diaspora Affairs, so feel free, and we will respond to all the questions that we didn't respond to there, so feel free to go and check it there. As I know that both of you are vegans, I think that you will be super interested in our...
Vegetarian, semi-vegan.
Oh, you're vegetarian?
I'm vegan.
I know Avi is vegan.
Semi-vegan.
Okay. I think both of you will be interested in our next session. So on Wednesday, we will have a session about the vegan revolution in Israel. Israel is considered to be the country with the highest percentages of vegan people. So we will have a session with our shlicha in New York, Ora-Di, who is a vegan activist when she is not a shlicha, and even when she is, about the story of the vegan revolution. And we'll have some mini cooking workshops. So you guys are more than welcome to join us, and everybody in the audience. And I think that all of us can agree that we hope that this government, this new government, will bring, will unite Israeli society. After a year of a very, very, very hateful year, it will be able to connect some Israeli society together and to create maybe some better and more optimist public discussion. And I want to thank both of you for joining us today. And,
thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Naveh. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Six, 7, 8, 9. Funds for Israel. The American government approved funds for Israel. Each party gets 100 shekels.